Welcome to Resource Sessions. I'm Gwen Sterk of Sterk Family Law, and I am pleased to have with us today Sierra of nViZion Rise Academy. Hi, Sierra. How are you today?
I am well. How are you?
Great. Thank you very much. So, we're so glad that you're able to join us today, and you're going to give us a little introduction to nViZion Rise Academy. So, tell us a little bit about the background and what services you provide.
Ooh, that's a loaded question, but no, it's very easy and simple. So, Envision Rise Academy is a school for the blind and visually impaired. We focus with children who are blind, but they also have multiple disabilities. So, we are providing a service that includes, but not limited to, teacher of the visually impaired. So, a teacher of the visually impaired is someone that comes in and look at the child holistically and say, okay, based on their visual impairment or additional disabilities, how do we allow them to be able to access their everyday curriculum? One of the things that comes up in our world is like, oh, so you learn sign language. And I'm like, no, we don't know sign language. Not all of us. Close your eyes. And they're like, oh, you know Braille. I'm like, yes, we know Braille. So we teach kids how to read and write in Braille. We teach kids how to use a seeing eye dog, a cane. We also work with children who are neurodivergent. We work with children who have cortical visual impairment. Now they call it cerebral impairment. So that's the teacher of the visually impaired services. We have orientation and mobility, which teaches a child with a visual impairment how to navigate in their environment, in their community. We have a rehabilitation specialist. So once they hit that transition age and they need additional support, we provide that as well. We have an assistive technology specialist that teach our children with multiple disabilities and with visual impairments how to use technology. And technology could be anything. It can be an iPad, it can be a laptop, it can be whatever you think that your child may need to be successful. So we have a very nice big team that works with children with disabilities, but with the focus and concentration of low vision and blindness.
Wow, that was a mouthful. There's a whole lot there. So, tell us how you got started.
Woo! So I started this. I will make this story very, very short, but a little bit long. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. The type of teacher I did not know. So we fast forward to college. I have the pleasure of being an alum of Illinois State University. I am a red bird through and through. And being a red bird and going to ISU, they're like, okay, we see you put, teaching on here, but you have to declare something. And I'm like, I do? I was like, well, special ed. They're like, yeah, it's not that simple here. You have to actually pick a concentration. I'm like, I don't know. So that semester, my advisor sent me home and was like, okay, here's your list. Pick something from this list. And I'm like, I don't know. And they gave me a bunch of classes. One of those classes had to be the anatomy of the eye. And by the end of that semester, I and another colleague of myself, we had to write a 40-page paper on all the eye conditions in the world. Yeah,
That's a
it
lot.
was 40 pages. It was a lot. Believe me, it was more than I had asked for. And after doing that and understanding the eyes and the parts of the eyes and the optic nerve and the macula and the retina, because I'm sitting in classes with ophthalmologists, optometrists, and then you have us who are just teachers of the visually impaired, which are just two different components. So took the class, fell in love, and I declared vision as my major. May of that year, so I was supposed to graduate in 2010, but because I picked vision, it added 2 more years. May of that year of 2012, I graduate, and not even 4 weeks later, I become my grandmother's power of attorney over her medical. And
Okay.
one of those things was her vision. She was losing her vision. I'm like, no, let me see that ocular report. And I ripped her ocular report and saw the discrepancies
Okay.
in her ocular report. And I said, excuse me. And so, not knowing I was going to be her POA over her vision, my grandmother did not lose her vision. She didn't transition until 4 years after that. But while I was her POA, her vision wasn't her concern. So from that, my grandmother and the rigor, and I saw the disconnect with the elderly community and their vision and how they just didn't care. And I'm like, that is one of our growing populations with visual impairments, macular degeneration.
Right.
We are all going to get older. We're going to have impairments.
And we're
So,
going to have cataracts, right?
and cataracts,
Yeah,
glaucoma,
right.
and so all those things. And if we don't talk about the preventative care of how to maintain your vision as you get older, you're always going to need services, which is where the rehabilitation comes in. So that's the background from college. Came back home, worked in public school settings here in Chicago, and I had a very bad encounter with administration at the time. And I remember her telling me and she said, "You're not making a difference in the lives of children that are visually impaired. You're a seat filler. So if I need to pull you to be a sub somewhere else, understand I'm going to pull you because you could get to your kids later." And at that moment, I realized people didn't have the same fight like I did for kids with disabilities,
Right.
especially visual impairments.
The vision impairment, right.
Yeah. So I said, okay, I'm gonna take that seat filler title with a crown, and I put in my letter of resignation, and I started my first business, which is our for-profit called House of Life. And out of that has been around for 10 years. I realized I want to make a bigger impact, just not being in the classroom, but in our community. And so this year I birthed New Vision Rise Academy to provide not only a sense of community, but a space for adults, children, and parents that have students with visual impairments, because there is no real space for
Certain
them.
support. So let's just say that somebody is listening and they have visual impairment. Maybe they have a child in their home and they're struggling. Because we've done a lot of disabilities, but I have to tell you, the vision component is not easily found, right? So they know that that's the nature, and maybe there is another, and there often is one other disability that comes with it. How does a parent get started to embark on what you're going to be able to offer?
Ooh, so it all depends on the age. So it's supposed to start, honestly, full transparently, it should start at the school, your home school. If they start at their home school and their home school may not have the services or the resources, then it is the responsibility of community, right, to be available and say, hey, we're here. So if they want to go to envisionrise.org, that is our website, and they can intake a form that we can support them and guide them, whether it's with their homeschool or if they would like to actually enroll in our program. We'll be located in Mokina, Illinois this year for the next 5 years. Our home will be here for 5 years in Mokina. Then they can go to our website, and then there is a registration process. But then you also, I'm an advocate of what's in your community first, and let's start with what's in your community. If that is non-existent, we're going to branch out. And so that is my way of telling a parent, if they were to need of resources or something for their child with a visual impairment, or need even understanding, because oftentimes what I'm finding is doctors put these labels on here, but do not explain exactly the eye condition and how it impacts, and where does this lead them? Will they have some sight? Could they gain their sight? So that is where I would tell a parent to first start with in community at their homeschool. If they do not have information or access in their homeschool, we are a community of resources. So they can contact us directly at envisionrise.org.
And do you then provide the educational services there at your location, correct? That's what I'm understanding.
Yes, we do. But there is what I'm learning in this process. There is a process in regards of qualifications, right? Because even at Envision Rise, and I'm just using this as an example, let's say we don't have occupational therapy and we couldn't hire an OT. It still will be the responsibility of the homeschool. And that's why we tell them start with your homeschool, because the homeschool would still have to then send over like their OTs or their PTs if we just didn't have it at Envision Rise.
Right. And that would be the parent working with their IEP or their 504 plan, right? In order to get that. And then the referral can be made to Envision to help the student go forward and get the services they need.
Yes, ma'am.
So instead of being put into a special education service that's more generic, this is more specifically created to solve and to address the needs of the visually impaired. Is that
Absolutely.
correct? Okay.
Yes, and if they have most other disabilities, right? Because we do have licensed special ed teachers that are qualified, whether they have. So one of our qualifications is deaf blindness, right? So people are like, wait, huh? Yes, we have students and children that are deaf and blind. So
Right.
that team, just for a child that's deaf and blind, is a special ed teacher, a deaf, hard of hearing teacher, a teacher of the visually impaired, and whatever additional services else. So understanding what a child needs, we're very individualized, and we're focused on how do we get them where they are to where they need, because our ultimate goal at Envision Rise is to integrate them back into their school settings with the
Sure.
skills needed. If not, they stay with us so we can continue to build up those skills. Until then, our goal was just to be that individual IEP to really hunker in to see how can we provide the maximum amount of support based on their needs and disabilities.
Okay, great. So we got, and I'm understanding it. Now we talked about transition. So at the beginning, you're talking about the transition services. And just for our listeners, that would be when a child would reach the age of 18, maybe normally taken out of the school structure, but getting that transition services till at least age 21 to be able to see what they can do in our community, correct?
That is correct. And
And
so
can,
for
yes,
go ahead.
tell us how you work with that community.
And that is a community in itself. So we have a transition plan
Okay.
just for children with disabilities with the focus on visual impairment. And we use what we call the expanded core curriculum.
Okay.
So our expanded core curriculum teaches children with visual impairments activities of daily living that they often may not get, because if they did have their sight, we learn a lot of things incidentally or by trial and error. But when a child has a visual impairment, it is not as easily accessible. So in that transition, we teach, right, career readiness, that is resume writing, job skills, how to use the assistive technology to complete the job that they're looking for. We piloted that program, I want to say 2 summers ago, and I had two students, high school students, local high school students. One wanted to be a cosmetologist, and the other one wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I partnered up with local small businesses in the community, and I'm like, okay, for them to do this job, what skills do they need? We learn the skills, they get the training, and then they go into the actual application of applying that on the job setting. So that is that transition period, to ensure that they have what they need to do whatever that they would like. But even if they don't know assistive technology, resume writing, career exploration, all of the things that they need to transition to be healthy citizens and adults of this world.
Right, and actively involved in the communication. It doesn't mean that they're left behind. We're not going to leave them behind. We're going to integrate and make it work. Now, in addition to
Yes.
that, as I understood from your first answer, you have services past that point during their adulthood years. Let's reserve the issue of that older population now. Let's just talk about adults. So it's my understanding you also can service that community. How does that?
Yes. So I have a staff member that does rehabilitation, and licensed to do rehabilitation, and two of them are also going back to do rehab as well. So even if they're past 22, the rehabilitation license allows us to provide services up until they're well in 99 years old. And so
Sure.
that is also mobility, right? It depends on where they are with respects to rehabilitation. Our rehabilitation specialist does an assessment, figure out what the gaps are. If they're coming, let's say they're coming back from war, and I'm just using that as an example, and they lost their sight. Well, a rehabilitation specialist then creates a curriculum. Well, they now need to learn Braille. So now we have to teach them Braille. On
Right.
top of teaching them Braille, we now also have to teach them how to use their cell phones. It could be an Android, it could be an iPhone, it doesn't matter. But the built-in accessibility features within those two devices, we still have to teach them that to be able to then still navigate and function in this world. So the rehab side of it is also kind of like our educational side, is very specific based on the skill gaps and needs that even once they get older, how to support them. And one of the things also with that older community is just simple skills, right? How to use Chat GPT. That's a new generation, but a lot of that older generation, like, what is Chat GPT? Like my mom
I
to
have no
the
idea. Right.
has no
Absolutely. Right.
idea.
And, I find, and, at my age, we've been through the parents that are ill, getting that assistance. And I know a lot of caregivers, and I know that they don't even know where to turn. So, understanding if you're a listener today, to know that somebody becomes visually impaired, maybe it was a car accident, maybe it was a medical condition, whatever it is, you don't have to be isolated. And I unfortunately think that sometimes the medical community doesn't make that link back to the services. Would you agree with that?
I agree wholeheartedly. They don't. And then you also get the, oh yeah, you can go to the Chicago Lighthouse, which is a prominent figure in our community.
Right.
Every state in the U.S. has a lighthouse for the blind or visually impaired, but it's sometimes too far out of reach for parents and community members to travel to. So we have to tell the local hospitals and the local agencies, like, hey, we're here, we exist. Please let people know if they do have issues, let
Sure.
them know we're here.
Right. Now, you're a not-for-profit for the Envision Rise portion of it. And with regard to that not-for-profit, I'm assuming that you have to get funding and secure services and be able to provide for that. So how can an individual or a corporate entity become involved? Maybe they have a passion for this community. Something happened in life, just like your life story, how your grandma was there. I'm sorry, but that was an act of God intervening to train you
Yes.
for the future. That's
Yes.
the way it is. And so somebody has had that experience. How do they work with you? What are the opportunities that are available?
Oh, they're endless. So like I said, we're opening our doors in the fall, and with us opening, we need volunteers. We need donations. So you could go to our website. We have a volunteer form. If you want to donate, our donation is on our website as well. But how do they really get involved in the community? For the corporate side of it, I would honestly look at your HR. Like, do you all have the structures in place beyond ADA to ensure that if a person with a visual impairment could come in and actually do the job? And if not, hey, would you like to, as a liaison of your organization, come to get the training to support your employees? We also offer that. So it's not limited just to the individual, but for the organization itself. They
Good.
can partner with us for us to come in and provide on staff training for not just the person with the visual impairment, but the other staff members of how do I work with a person as blind and
Sure.
visually impaired? Because
That's wonderful.
sometimes, yeah, because sometimes we lead with empathy and like, oh, let me automatically and help. But see, the disconnect is we tell our kids and our adults with visual, don't take help. Show them that you can be independent. But see, there's a disconnect because the world feels, oh, you have a disability, you need our help. Whereas we teach them, no, we don't need our help. I just need you to direct me where I gotta go. And there's that disconnect. So I think understanding the language and how we teach and train those with disability versus how the world sees those with disability, come be a part of our workshops. We'll be having workshops to educate organizations and local communities on how to work with people with disabilities. It's not just limited to the individual.
Sure.
I think we do have volunteers. We have events coming up in the fall in 2025-2026 academic school year. Sponsorships. Again, we're going to open our doors if they want to sponsor a classroom, if they want to sponsor a computer. We know where all the equipments, and that is the most expensive thing for us.
Sure.
People think like, well, they're blind, they're visually impaired. I'm like, and we, out of all the disabilities, we probably spend the most on just software and equipment because everything has to be breaking down. So if they would like to sponsor, we are open. We're also creating a library and a sensory room. So
Okay.
my first paraprofessional that taught me everything that I needed to know about visual impairments and working with kids. Unfortunately, she passed away this year,
Sorry to hear that.
and
Yeah.
she was a librarian. And I told her and her children, I said, "Well, once I open my school, it's gonna be named after her because she was a librarian before she was a
Sure.
parent." And so we need books, we need braille books, we need materials. Some things are easily accessible to us, but when we talk about that community feeling, I want the community to feel like they are involved in the organization. If they want to come and volunteer, come volunteer every Friday. We're open to everything. So during the day, it will be a school, and then in the afternoons, it will be the community center, because it's a nice sized building. We don't need all this space
Okay.
just for the school. It is going to be a community center, because I know in Tinley Park, one of the church members of Tinley Park reached out to me, and she was like, I'm blind and I just want to go play bingo with my friends. You got bingo cards? I said you could come by the office, and I made her on the spot 10, 15 Braille bingo cards so she could make it to bingo night with her friends. So it's things like that, volunteering, helping those do other things in the community. So that's how
Absolutely.
people get involved.
Well, tell us about how we get a hold of you. Where do we go for the website? Give us a little bit contact information.
Yes. So you can contact me directly. I'm a big transparent. I check my emails. Sierra. So SIERRA at nVizion VIZION rise.org. If you want to just email the office itself, it's info@nVisionRise. So our assistant is more than happy to answer any emails or questions that come that way. We have our website, envisionrise.org. We are starting all of our social media. So all of our social media will be Envision Rise or Envision Rise Academy. You can find us there, but everything really for right now, because we are in the launching stage of everything, will be on our website. So sign up for our newsletter. So everybody, we send out, I don't want to read newsletters every month. We do them quarterly because it's the important things.
Sure.
But if there's times that we need to, sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter will have everything, volunteer opportunities, galas, workshops that we're having. If your company would like to sponsor a workshop or provide a workshop, they can go to our website, so that we can give back to our parents, our students, and the community who are blind and visually impaired with additional disabilities.
Well, it's an absolutely wonderful thing, because it is true that there's no reason that they can't equally be in the community with everyone else. So it's such a wonderful opportunity. And I think that we forget, and I think that sometimes adults are left behind who suffer from that in the middle of, you don't know, but for the grace of God go I. And so any of us could be in that situation for many different reasons. So having these opportunities. And then I'm sure that there's different degrees of the vision impairment as well
Yes.
that can be looked at, right?
Yes, ma'am. There's four. I'll keep the four general. So you have low vision, so they have some sight, and glasses cannot correct. People, they're like, but without my glasses I can't see. Okay, but with your glasses, the glasses give correction. It's the point where even with the glasses, if it cannot be corrected, you now have a visual impairment that impacts your ability to just function. So you got total blindness. So a person, I always tell people, Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder is totally blind. He's never had sight. Ray Charles was technically legally blind that turned to total blindness. So as he was transitioning of losing his sight, it was causing him to become legally blind, but then he ended up becoming totally blind. So total blindness, legal, and then you got partial sighted, and then low vision. So those are the four categories. Partial sighted could be cataracts, glaucoma.
Right.
That's partially sighted, because you can still function, you can still drive, you can still do things with your sight that doesn't impact you. And then low vision can be something as like a muscle imbalance, where I would use the non-professional jargon, which is cross-eyed. That's an actual visual impairment because it's a muscle. Your muscles are not contracting to where your eyes can be straight. That's low vision that can be supported by like vision therapy. So people are like, wait, you're not a vision therapist? I said, no, I'm not an MD, but think of you break your arm and then you got to go to PT to kind of get your strength back. That's what vision therapy is. It helps get the strength back in the muscles of the eyes that are weak. I don't have access to the brain. I have access to the classroom. That's what makes us different. So those are the four categories of vision.
Very interesting. And I think that the most unique thing about the organization is how you help, from the children all the way through 99 plus, right? So there's so much involvement, there's so much opportunities. And I think that more of us face this issue than people like to acknowledge. So we really appreciate what you do to the community. I hope and encourage everybody to get involved so that you can learn about the services that are rendered, you can support the organization, and we welcome you to Mukina.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Look, if I could leave with one thing,
Sure.
back up off the devices. I know we are on our devices, but that is the leading cause as of 2025 of visual impairments is how much we are on our devices, whether it's our phone, our iPads, our computers. Take a break. So I do with from our doctors, do a 20-20 rule. 20 minutes of work, take a 20-second break, looking at something 20 feet away to break up the continuity of looking at something for a long period of time, because we do not talk about the UV lights that are perpetrated off of our devices that impacts the cornea and all of the everything that's going on with our eyes. Take a break. That's that. If I can leave with anything else, please take a
Sure.
break from
Well,
all
great
these.
advice. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. You all have a wonderful day and evening, and I hope to see everybody in the fall at the grand opening.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.